friends. Welcome back to Parenting for the Culture on the Black Love Podcast Network. I'm Cherie Sims, and today we're going to be doing something a little different. Part of the parenting journey is talking to other parents about their trials and tribulations and learning from one another. And I couldn't think of a better mama to start with than someone I've known for quite some time. She's a wife, a mama of 3 beautiful boys, plus she's the co-founder of Black Love Inc., the director of the Black Love docuseries, a podcast host, and just all the things. I'm so excited to talk parenting with Codie Elaine Oliver.
Hey!
Welcome, Codie. Thank you for being here. And thank you for allowing me to do this podcast. I actually just realized that I think I can add to this list that you're also my boss. Are you my new boss? Like, I just realized that.
OMG. Never thought of it that way.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy.
And my boss, y'all. So before we get started, can you share with us how old the boys are and one word you could use to describe them?
The oldest is 5. That is Brooks. And the twins are 3, Aristotle and Langston. One word to describe all 3 of them? Funny.
Brooks is like a Groundhog Day 5-year-old. Like, in my mind, he's been 5 for 3 years now.
Oh, yeah, because he's grown.
He's grown and a genius. So, Codie, tell us a little bit about how you were raised.
How was I raised? The short version is that my mom's a doctor. Lord, my mom's a lawyer. My dad's a doctor. And they were married until I was 11, and then they got divorced, and I was blindsided. So weirdly, I don't remember a lot before I was 11. It's a very weird thing. I don't know if the two things are tied, but I don't remember a lot. There are moments that I remember for sure. Like my grandfather, my mom's from North Carolina, my dad's from Texas. They met at Howard, and they were together like 16 years or married 16 years before they got divorced. But they were together longer than that. My grandfather from North Carolina, he used to come visit. Like he would drive from North Carolina to Fort Worth, Texas. And he would bring oatmeal cream pies. I know that has nothing to do with your question, but these are like my memories,
These are childhood
right?
memories, yeah.
And my grandparents, my dad's side, lived in Fort Worth. So I remember like we would go to church on Sunday. We would go to their house for breakfast and Sunday school and church.
So you grew up in church, or this is when you were visiting your
No, girl, I grew up in church in Fort Worth, Texas, until my parents got divorced. And let's see. And I have a sister. She's 6.5 years older than me, which is like a lot. And
we're going to talk about your sister because in my mind, there was no sister. I know. I heard you talking about your sister recently, and I was like, what sister?
I totally have a sister. And I mean, that's what I remember about that time. I feel like I remember being raised, or I remember being parented after that. When my parents got divorced, I was going from house to house suddenly. You know what I mean? My dad moved out. And that is probably the most like pivotal time in my life is 11 and after, because they were, I think, finding themselves in a way. They had been married and together for all this time since college. Yeah. And now they're discovering themselves and they're dating. My sister has gone off to college at this point. So I'm just like the solo child, seeing them in their new environments. Yeah. Trying to be a teenager. I played sports. I played volleyball, basketball, and I ran track. And yeah, so they would agree, but we were like parenting each other. Like, I'm sure they were doing some actual parenting. Yeah. Okay. Not taking anything away from them, but we were learning each other and like being accountable to each other.
I think that's true of all parents, that your children are parenting you, that you are reparenting yourself, and then you're parenting your children. Yeah. And I think for me, I feel like I have birthed a new part of myself every time I birthed a new child that had to, you know, we all parented each other. Yeah. So you say that you were blindsided. So I have 2 questions with that. One, was it just like a happy home before that? And there was obviously no indication.
For me, it was a happy home before that.
Well, that's beautiful.
My sister would say differently. She's, like I said, 6 years older. So I'm 11. She's 17. So she saw whatever she saw. I mean, the short version was that my dad was an alcoholic, which when they got divorced, so I get like, I remember them getting divorced, but I remember maybe a year later getting someone coming to my classroom at school to be like, your dad's in the hospital, because he went to rehab.
Traumatic.
It was all very traumatic.
Very traumatic.
He went to rehab. But again, I did not know. Yeah. I did not know. They're very loving toward me and each other. Like that's my observation. But my dad, he was, and my understanding of the way that played out as a doctor in particular was there were a lot of times that my mom had to like cover for him, taking calls. This is when there's pagers and people are, he delivered babies over a period. People are going into labor, having emergencies, and she's having to like take care of him and be a middleman and like get him together so he can go do his job. Again, not seeing any of this.
Yeah.
And so that weighed on her.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there were other things, right? But ultimately they made the decision. She was like, if this doesn't change, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
And
even
so
if there weren't other things, I think that's enough. I think that sounds very heavy.
Yeah.
A lot for someone.
But for me, I really didn't see it or experience it.
Do you wish you did have an indication beforehand? Do you wish that you weren't blindsided? And I kind of ask because I think as parents, we're always questioning how much to share with our children, how much to hide from our children. I know even with my own marriage, there are times like my husband and I have had the conversation of like, what disagreements do we or don't we have in front of the children? And sometimes I'm like, well, they should see how to resolve conflict and those things. But then also arguing can cause stress for a child. So as the child, what do you wish?
I'm honestly going to say, now granted, I have so much perspective. I was 11. I am now 38.
Right.
But I would say that I would not change that.
Okay.
I would not change that. Yeah. I can't imagine what they could have said or done. Who knows what path that would have put me or us on, but I wouldn't.
Good to know. So Hiram wins. We shall argue in the bedroom.
No, I mean, look. At the end of the day, we would very not likely have black love had that not happened to me.
So that's actually one of my later questions, but I'm going to ask it now since you brought it up. So I have noticed, not just with you, with a lot of people and their success, that success sometimes, what seems to me a lot of times, comes out of a place of lack. When things are underrepresented, like Black Love, you came up with the Black Love docuseries. And now, from my perspective, you and Tommy do very well. You guys have this beautiful family. So, you're a product of a divorced family. Your children are growing up in a married home. And I think as parents, we sometimes try to shield our children from all the things and try to have them live in this bubble. But at the same time, there are certain things that are really hard life truths that actually end up being a really great product of their success that blesses so many other people. So I want to know your thoughts on that when it comes to your boys and what are your thoughts and how do you gauge around that?
Ooh, child. I mean, I definitely feel extremely responsible for who they are and who they become, while also knowing that I can't control it. But I feel very conscious of what I share with them. And I don't mean what I share with them like good or bad. It's not that. I just mean like I always want them to see people as human.
Yes.
And including themselves, right? And give grace.
Yeah.
So that's probably my answer regarding like how I parent. But going back to that period, right? The immediate impact was my parents got divorced. I don't know why. They've been together all this time. I don't know how to know if a relationship works or not. Now, at this point, I was already a person who like, I've probably, oh Lord, are these things all tied together? I probably fell in love when I was 11. I remember summer camp. I remember his name. Okay.
What was his name? No.
Girl. That's a conversation when we stop recording. But I remember that I've always been a person who loved love. And so, we're talking probably in the course of a year, I couldn't tell you which thing happened first, right? In terms of the year that I was 11, 12. But it definitely sent me down a path of like, oh, so what makes a relationship work or not work if theirs didn't? Which led to many years later, also knowing statistics around being the kid of a divorced parent, of divorced parents, I'm more likely to get divorced. And then the Black marriage crisis. And so this perfect storm of things made me like, well, I want to ask people who are married how to do it. Because all these things are pointing to the fact that like, I won't be able to be successful because my parents weren't and because I'm Black, which is not factual. But that's what the media will tell us. So it was this perfect storm, honestly. But the gift in my parents getting divorced, regardless of the blindsidedness or not, is that I was able to spend all of this time with them alone.
Mm-hmm.
And that was even a gift with my sister being gone. I don't know how it would have been different if she were there. Maybe I would have, hidden behind her presence, right, and not spent the time with them that I did. And she was there for a little while. I think it was probably like a year or so before she went to college. So it's a perfect storm that created, to your point, like the lack that made me curious, maybe obsessed, that led to me creating a business around love. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question at all.
A little bit.
Keep them coming.
A little bit.
I'm here all day.
But I'm wondering, so the question has more to do with, as parents, we try to ensure that our children don't have any lack.
Yes.
Some lack is just inevitable. So I guess if I were to rephrase the word, like, what do you see or maybe foresee your children? I guess we can't foresee their lack.
Yeah, because I know it can go either way. I know that the lack can lead to something incredible, or the lack can lead to like trauma and lots of therapy, or both.
Is there anything right now that you are like trying hard to make sure that doesn't happen for them?
Sure. Girl, being there. Like, I have a whole business that we started when Brooks was born.
Yeah.
And over the 5 years of his life, there's been these ebbs and flows of me being home a lot and me not being home a lot. And so I think about, and then knowing, you could probably word it better than me because you probably know, but like the period from 0 to 4, 0 to 5 being the most like critical time in their lives where they are defined as humans.
Right.
I'm exaggerating, I think, but it's an important time. And so like, am I there enough? And is it too late for any of them? So for me right now with the age that they are, right, it's not like they're 13 and I'm looking back.
Right.
The lack that I don't know what it will mean ultimately is mommy's not home. They're spending a lot of time with our wonderful nanny. And then I have to remind myself that putting wonderful people in their lives is part of my role. So that would be the only thing that like weighs on me in terms of a lack.
Okay.
Yeah.
And can I give my 2 cents on that?
Yeah, girl.
So
I'm here to learn from you.
First of all, it is 0 to 5. And that is the critical period of time where their brain is expanding the most. They're able to learn the most things, but that's also where they kind of gain their paradigm of what the world looks like. Is the world good? Is the world bad? And the rest of their lives, it's never too late. The rest of their lives are just spent confirming or denying that which they have been taught is true.
That's great. I would argue my kids definitely know the world is good. Or definitely believe the world is good based on this first 5 years.
Yeah. And it's a beautiful thing because similar to how the self-fulfilling prophecy, like if we believe something about ourselves, it comes true. We literally can do the same thing for other people. So a lot of times children who believe the world is good bring out the best in other people. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen a child with a grumpy old man, but a grumpy old man may not want to talk and the child just brings out the little smile in them. So I would say that your children are good and happy.
Yeah.
I also think like from my own experience, one thing I've noticed is like children who, as you say, have people placed in their life to meet all of their needs and care for them, like they're okay. I don't think it always has to, for some reason as parents, we believe it always, especially as moms, we're always like, it has to be me. I have to be the one to read to them every night. I have to be the one to put them to sleep. I have to be the one to do all the things. But I think as long as they get those things, they seem to be happy.
You know what it is too, is that I want to create an environment of openness. I mean, look, my goal at the end of the day, or my hope or my dream is that they can tell me anything.
Yeah.
And there's, I think, probably a lot of work and effort that goes into creating that space, or subtle work. They don't need to know. I'm not like, oh, tell me everything every day, right? But being present for anything is a part of that.
Yeah.
And if I'm not present now, am I setting that groundwork? So that's probably like my inner fear.
Yeah.
Because that's my biggest goal.
Yeah. I know. I think about that. For me, more than being there, it's how I respond when they mess up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I feel like if they mess up or do something wrong, but feel like I'm a safe space, then I'm always that safe space where they can come and talk.
Yes.
You're laughing. Tell us the story.
Because I'm very like literal with that. And sometimes it just feels like, let me just say all the things so that they know. And then other times, of course, I act, I show, not tell, right? And so I have taken to saying to them, like, I love you when you're mad. I love you when you're happy. I love you when you're sad. I love when you make bad choices. I love you when you like, I give them all the bad things, right?
That's
like, I love when you do that. And I love when you're happy. And I love when you're laughing. And I do that. Girl, why did Langston, he was going off about something, just crying and screaming, and not like crying like he's sad, like he has done something wrong or hit somebody or something and he's in trouble and he's crying and he's like, literally he's 3 years old. You said you love me when I'm crying. And I'm like, I had to laugh because I'm like, you're right.
Cute.
I do.
He's getting the message.
Not only is he getting the message, the boy repeated it back to me. Like, I love him.
That's beautiful.
I loved it.
He's getting the message. He's going to take it with him for life. He's going to be at the bar at 23 being crazy, talking about, my mama said she loved me when I'm drunk.
I'll take it. That is all I want, is for them to know that they are loved and to tell me all their secrets.
I think that you do that very well. And your boys are some of the most loving boys that I know. And I
almost said loving when you said one word, but it was like, let me try to think of something else.
They are funny. I think loving, for sure. I mean, I know Brooks better than I know the twins. And Brooks is one of the kindest, most loving, most considerate humans that I know. And it's really amazing to me because he's so young and he's so smart. And you don't usually get both. Like, a lot of times, I'm not saying that as a put down to anybody else. I'm just saying intelligence, right? There are different types of intelligences. And usually people that are intelligent in the realm of reading and math and science, they're not also emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
They just, like, you have a dominance. And Brooks is emotionally intelligent and academically intelligent. He's an amazing boy.
I
and
agree.
Eden's available. So you talked about not, one thing that you worry about is not being there, and that, you have Erica there. And I don't know if I shared this with you, but you have taught me a really great thing in parenting. And that was recently at the twins' birthday. It was like after the birthday party. I think they had gone up to get ready for bed, and we had like our little mommy circle time in the kitchen.
Oh, literally, we were sitting on the floor.
Literally
in the kitchen,
on the floor,
drinking
in a circle, crisscross applesauce, a bunch of grown women, mommies just letting the other kids run free while some kids are going to bed. Some kids, I don't know, they might have been drawing on the walls, but we were like, we're happy. We're having circle time. And your mom was there.
Yes, she was probably having circle time.
I love her. And we're talking about all different kinds of things. And then you start talking about Erica. I think maybe it was like, let me check where the boy, I don't know. But Erica came up and you started talking about how much you love Erica and that you hope she'll be around forever. And then you referenced your mom's relationship with your nanny when you were younger.
Oh, Lord.
For me,
little Thelma and Louise.
You can tell us about their relationship. But for me, that moment was so mind-blowing. I really can't even articulate it. And part of it is because so often in my own work, I talk about breaking generational cycles. And sometimes this is in the realm of like spanking children or yelling at children. But I've never thought about it until that moment in the realm of positive things that we can do for ourselves as parents and positive things that we can give to our children. And I realized that I grew up with the message that having a nanny was a bad thing and that it meant I wasn't doing well enough. And I grew up, going to school where most of the children did have nannies. And I won't talk a lot about my mom and her own stuff, but I don't know if my mom was jealous. I don't know what it was. But she used to always like just little things. She'd be like, oh yeah, they're nanny. Right. And so even just that small way of saying the word nanny, it gave a negative feeling to it. Yeah. So I think as a parent, and as we know, I have 6 children. So I very well would love a nanny and love help. And I remember my husband would say this from 2-3 children. He was like, we should get a nanny. I was like, and I would always be insulted by that. I don't need a nanny. I can do it. What do you mean we need a nanny? Oh, you think I can't mom? Like, and so I just always kind of stayed away from this idea of having someone else support me with my children in that way, because I thought it meant that I wasn't doing my job. But when I heard you talking about it, I was like, oh, she grew up with a nanny. She has a nanny for her children. Like, this is one of those generational things, but it's a thought process that we're passing down.
Yeah.
That support is good.
Yeah.
And it's okay. So I wanted you to talk a little bit about Thelma and Louise. And
okay. Well, first let me say that I have some of the same stigma, right? Like, I grew up the person who people would be like, oh, she got a nanny. You know what I mean? Like, Tommy to this day, like, he's always talking about my silver spoon, and it annoys me. Like, I grew up, you know, my parents were like, as I just described, like, like shit was not perfect, right? They were divorced and acting crazy and separately eventually.
And hospital announcements in the middle of class.
All of these things, right? But yet I was still the kid who, like, would be not made fun of, but like teased because I had a nanny, or because my parents were the Cosbys, right? The doctor and the lawyer. So it was always uncomfortable. Or rather, I never knew how it would be received. But I also knew, like, my parents were at work. Who's going to pick me up?
Right.
I got to get home. So fast forward to, like, you know, I went through all the same things. The first time we hired a babysitter for Brooks was like this, like, am I not doing enough? Am I not enough? Should I be home? Like, all the same things. And then, you know, escalating that to full time, right? And so even saying the word nanny. Right. Like, I did not say it for a long time. There's still times when I don't say it. There's times there's times when I don't say it, or I sort of like read the room or whatever. So all of that is really still a thing. Yeah. Because there are stigmas from different people. And, but I absolutely need Erica. I absolutely need help. I don't want to say need full-time help. It's been an evolution, right? Yeah. And we had 3 kids in 2 years. Yeah. And we both work full-time. And you had twins. I had not twins, just 3 kids, but twins who are literally double the calling. Whew. And so all of that to say, like, I'm very grateful to have found someone. I've had really good support as well. We had 2 nannies prior to Erica. And so she's been with us like a year and a half, but I'm really grateful to have her, and her experience as a mom. She has an 18-year-old son. Anyway, so all of that about Erica. And so I do think about, like, well, the twins are going to go to school at some point, and we're not going to need this, like, 9 to 6 help, right? But I need to figure out a way for her to stay forever. Yeah. At that time, I think in November was the twins' birthday you were talking about. I was probably just realizing that. So I'm still trying to figure out what we're going to do exactly. And I know she loves us and wants to stay as long as possible, but it has to make sense. Right. And so to your point, 2 things. One is that Thelma and Louise, my mom and Miss Pearl, Miss Pearl was my nanny from, like, I don't know, probably pre the divorce till now. She helps my mom. My mother's 70. Miss Pearl, I think, is your mom closer. Is not. She's 70. Yes. And Miss Pearl's probably like 75. And so now Miss Pearl comes over and she cleans the house like once every 3 days or something. Like, she comes over a couple times a week. But it's just the way that they bicker, but also are homies. Like, it's hilarious. So it is absolutely hilarious. And they help each other. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know to this, like, if Miss Pearl really needs a job, right? Right. But my mom enjoys her, and Miss Pearl enjoys helping my mom, and it works for everybody. And so just that relationship, that's so much more than, like, nanny parent or even housekeeper parent. Like, it's just, well, they become a part of your family. Yes, she's absolutely a part of our family, but even more so because I'm not in Texas anymore, right? Like, I've been gone since 2000 something. I went to college in 2001, right? So for them to have their own thing for like 20 years is just hilarious. And me and Erica gonna have to figure it out. And you will. I'll help you because I love Erica too. She's not going nowhere. I appreciate that she'll send me videos of the boys. You know, I'm like, oh, she loves them. She's in this. So we're keeping you, Erica, forever. Yep. She's gonna love this. What would you tell a mom who's struggling to accept support? The same thing I tell Ashley Chia all the time. No, I've been telling Ashley for years to get some support. So what would I tell a mom who's struggling to accept support? I mean, to do it, I would literally offer the baby step of, you can stay home with them, like overlap an hour or 2 hours. Like, you don't feel like you have to let go. That's my biggest piece of advice for the beginning. It's hard and it's scary, and you feel like, well, I can do it.
Yeah.
But if you have someone there, you can observe them. You can see how you feel. And then ultimately know that, like, you're giving yourself a gift, right?
Yeah.
You're giving yourself freedom to work on your passion, or to work on your job, or to get a facial if that's what you need to do. But we all know, like, it's no secret that, like, mom time, self-care, all of that is very valuable, and it helps us show up as our best selves for our families. So there's no doubt that support is helpful, but also we put so much on ourselves. I have no family here. And if I did, maybe I would still have a nanny. But we don't have any family in Los Angeles. And so this was a no-brainer for us. That still people are like, oh, you have a nanny? Yes, because we don't have grandmothers and aunties and cousins.
It really, the stigma is very funny to me, and the criticism and judgment of it, because it's funny to me to look at you and say, oh, you have a nanny, and ignore all of the other things that you guys are doing that we can see the products of, and know that it probably requires the most work. And so what if you got caught up in the stigma of it, if you got caught up in pride of trying to say, I did it by myself, what would your businesses look like?
It's funny. I had an answer before you said, what would your businesses look like? First of all, I would probably have a nanny. I just would never talk about it. Okay. I wouldn't walk around
like, this
saying,
is not an option.
I wouldn't walk around saying I did it myself, but I would just be like, oh, it's hard. But what would my businesses, there wouldn't be a business without that. I mean, okay, so then let me be realistic, right? There's something in between failing at business and not having a nanny, and that's like daycare, right?
Right.
That's something that we didn't really explore, in part because we wanted accessibility to Brooks. This was like first with him. We wanted the accessibility. We lived down the street from the office, and it allowed us to come home whenever we want and see him, or have her bring him over. And, so there was accessibility that was important to us, and trust. Everything's a sacrifice, right? Like childcare, specifically having a babysitter and then eventually a nanny, was a priority of ours.
Yeah.
And so there are a lot of things that we sacrificed as a result.
Yeah.
So, and that's the case now. Girl, like I think about like how much money I would have if I did not have these children. It's a lot. It goes to other people now.
Well, I say kudos to you. I think it's great. And as you know, I ended up in the hospital last week,
yes,
or
girl.
maybe 2
and
weeks
I was
ago.
Immediately like, can we send her some childcare, please?
Send her some help. And I will tell you that I cannot thank you enough, because we think we can do all the things on our own. Technically, we can. We cannot do them well, but we literally cannot do them when we're in the hospital. So, and it shouldn't get to that point where that's the first time. And I'm glad that was not the first time that I sought out, help or a babysitter or whatever. But like, I would not have wanted that to be my indicator that you need help and you can't do it alone. So thank you for your support and your example. So I always wonder, in my having 6 children, I literally fantasize about them being adults and being close. And like we do these yearly ladies' nights before the boy came along. And I imagine
come to my house.
that, oh, I will. He'd have so much fun. He told me girls are boring. But it is one of my greatest like hopes that even after I'm gone, my girls will be 80 years old, still having ladies' night together. Same. Right. And I look at my husband and his sister. Well, I'll talk about me and my sister first. Me and my sister did not grow up together. She's 11, 12 years older than me. She and I did not grow up together, but as adults, she's one of my best friends. And so a lot of times when I look at my own daughters, I hope that they will see us together and be like, okay, you're supposed to be best friends. Like, I just kind of think that, I just hope that we'll exemplify that for them, and that they'll all grow up and love each other. But they're also 6 totally, or 5 girls, 1 boy. They're 6 totally different people. And within 6 people, there probably are going to be some personalities that just don't mesh. And as a mom, I kind of got to prep for my heart to be broken that my children may not grow up to be best friends or very close. So I guess like I'm wondering, one, how you imagine Brooks and the twins as they grow up.
Yeah, same. I mean, look, imagine and hope are different, right? And so like I truly hope and I try to foster an environment where they love and respect each other, where they have like intentional time together. I try to listen to like parenting podcasts and things. And this, what I'm about to use as an example, isn't even a parenting podcast. It's, I want to say it was Brene Brown, and she was interviewing like siblings that work together or something like that. And
you sent me that.
I did.
Yeah.
Yes, that was like a Latino couple brother sister who started a business. It was a food related business, and they were talking about how their parents, whenever they would fight, not just them, they had other siblings, would like force them to hug after. Like, and so they were like, we just didn't have a choice. We just had to like each other. And stuff like that can go either way, of course. But I try to be that parent that's like, okay, give him a hug. And I also try to pay attention to how they feel about it, you know? But I'm like, okay, tell him you're sorry. Look him in the eyes. Okay, give him a hug. I try to pay attention to that. Because I absolutely want them to be close. Right. I absolutely want them to be able to depend on each other no matter where they are. And in a perfect world, go into business together.
Wouldn't that be the perfect world?
Wouldn't it?
I'd be planting those seeds in my children all the time. Now, let me ask you, in that, wanting them to be close, to what extent or to what sacrifice would you want them to be close?
To what sacrifice?
And I ask that in the realm of sometimes you do have a sibling, maybe they have a mental health disorder, maybe there's something going wrong. And I know your kids, they're all good. But sometimes you have a sibling who might be harmful towards you to be too close to them and who might take more than they give, and it just becomes unhealthy. So to what extent, which one is more important to you, and how do you cultivate both?
I hope to cultivate them looking at each other and giving grace, like, and looking at each other as human, being able to love each other and support each other, even if they know based on experience that should be from afar. Like I still want them to respect themselves and their boundaries, right? So that's important to me. My hope, of course, is that they're all besties. But the reality is that it might not be the case. You know, I cannot control their individual personalities. And so
how did your parents nurture you and your sister having a relationship? Or what do you think, if they could they have done anything better?
You know, I honestly think
more.
My parents were going through a lot.
Yeah.
When they were married, when they got divorced. And so I often refer to the gift of them getting divorced for me being the intentional time that I got to spend with them. But added to that was that each of us, my sister was in college, my parents were in different homes, living their, living out the lives that they couldn't when they were married, and I was in high school. Each of us was like growing up independently of each other, and we had to create our own bonds. Right. So there was no, my sister's name is Lee. There was no like Codie and Lee hanging out. There was a little bit of that, and I'll share, but it wasn't like we were just hanging out, kicking it. She was in Virginia. She was at Hampton when I was in high school in Texas. And so everybody was an individual, and we had to forge those relationships with one another. And that's also why like my sister's relationship with my mom or with my dad was completely different than my relationship with my mom and with my dad. Right. So the time that we did have was ours, and it was intentional. It was like me going to visit her at school. What were my parents doing? I don't know. I remember being like Thanksgiving, and I'm at Hampton, like kicking it with the college girls. But that's how it was then. Then I went to Howard, and she moved to DC. So that was really the first time that we were like adultish in the same city. Yeah. And it was interesting because she graduated from Hampton and went to DC, not to Howard. She went to DC, and it was like she wanted to be big sister. And I kind of was like, sis, you ain't been here. You cool and all. Right. But I've been alone, essentially all this time. And so that was definitely a huge adjustment. Yeah. Part of why I asked this also is because I mentioned my husband earlier. He has 2 siblings, close to his younger brother, not close to his sister. I think I can say, I feel like we all know that. It's not a secret. And I always kind of ask him, like, what happened? Why are you not close? Because he talks about the fact that they were close when they were younger. And he
he doesn't know. He can't quite pinpoint it, but he often talks about like college.
Yeah.
And when she went away to college and him, I don't know if he felt hurt that they didn't keep in touch. So one thing I've always done is I'm like, anytime our kids go somewhere, whether it's a sleepover at a grandparent's house or the older girls just went to New York with my mom, I'm like, y'all are calling each other every night.
Yeah.
Every night that you're not here.
I like that.
We're going to do that. We're going to still see each other, talk to each other. If you're not going to say anything else, you're just going to say, how are you? But it is important. So I'm always looking for ways to try to at least cultivate, as you said, that care, concern, respect for one another, regardless of what the relationship looks like in their adult years.
Yeah.
So there are so many questions that I think are universal to parenting, but everyone answers a little bit differently, and I want to hear your thoughts. So first, I want to ask you how you would describe your parenting style.
My style, loving, and I know that like maybe sounds like obvious or corny, but like, and certainly erring on corny. But it's like I want to like give them an abundance of love in hopes that they give that to others, to themselves and to each other. And even when they're like in trouble, I try really hard to be really calm, to be really like explain things to them. You know, you did this and that you made a bad choice. I don't say you're bad or good, but you made bad choices. So that's how I would describe it. I wonder what Tommy would say.
What he would say about your parenting style? Well, I've seen you in action. I think you're very loving.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I actually heard your podcast with your mom, and she talked about a time that you went out dressed in some Daisy Dukes and makeup.
Did.
And she said that
Black
she
lipstick.
kind of discouraged you from it, said that was a bad idea, but then let you do it anyways. Yeah. Are you that type of parent too, where you're kind of like, I'll let them make their own mistakes. I'll voice my opinion.
Now, granted, they're 3 and 5. So the worst of that is like putting on a costume to go outside. But I don't see myself being as like open as my mom was in that scenario. I don't see it. I'm trying to think of an example now, but I would if they were super adamant about something. I never, because there's that weird line of like pushing them to anything and then potentially rebelling or whatever, or just like letting them be and letting them see how it feels to whatever it is to not take a bath that day.
Oh no, we're taking baths. We are taking baths every day. All right. How would you define success as a parent?
Ooh, success as a parent is, for me, whenever they honestly are like kind to each other and to the adults in their lives. I mean, Brooks is in kindergarten, so the success is not defined by doing his homework. You know what I mean? Also, he's been very naturally doing all the work for like at least 3 years. So I bought him a How to Write a Paragraph book the other day, and he's so excited about it and like chose to do it on his own.
Tell him to write me a paragraph. So, I'll read them all.
It's not success because it's innate, right? So I can't take credit for it. But so that's why like I try to make them
What do you mean by that? So success would be something you can take credit for, or?
Yeah, well, that I like to attribute to my parenting, right? I do not attribute my parenting. I don't attribute his enjoyment of writing a paragraph through the How to Write a Paragraph workbook as a success for me, except buying the book, you know, like nurturing that part of him.
Yeah.
I guess that is success, but I just bought a book. That's all I did.
No, I think that's an important part. The nurturing.
Yeah.
It is. It's
I think overall, like when all is said and done, I'll probably see it that way too, you know? Because we absolutely, it's not just like we'll buy every kid's book there is because we want them reading. But I do enjoy sort of finding something that like, oh, he'll really get into that and it will help him. It'll help him intellectually. It'll help him as a kinder person, like the mindfulness. He's got a mindfulness workbook and an anger management workbook and all of those things. And so when he enjoys those things that I get for him and we do it together, that feels like success. But the twins don't do none of that.
The twins are their own species.
The babies. I actually try not to call them the twins. I've been doing it a lot more lately.
What would you say is the cycle you're trying to break as a parent?
There's probably a lot of them. So the first is interesting because I did say that I would not want my parents to have done anything differently. I would not want my children to feel blindsided by anything, right? That I can control. And what I mean by that is like, if Tommy and I decided to get divorced, I'm not saying that we would like walk them through every problem that we were having up until that point. But if we made that decision, there needing to be discussion around whatever will ultimately come to light. You know what I mean? Like, and that, some version of that probably happened for me, but no, there was no mommy and daddy sit down. So transparency, but starting much earlier. So I use the divorce as an example, but transparency. I try very hard to be really transparent with them. I'm really obsessed with the like sex related, biology related conversations with them, not because of anything in my own childhood, but there's a lot of stuff I read early on. Because I always wanted to be a parent. So there was a lot of things that I would like observe and read. And I guess at some point I must have read something about sexual abuse happening. And it's like children don't know their body parts, so they don't know how to communicate about it. They don't know about consent. About consent sounds very educational or whatever, but like they don't know what's right or wrong. Like who's allowed to do what, so I always wanted to protect them from the worst things in the world. Same as Black love. I was like, tell me the worst things that can happen in a marriage and how you get through it. I was like, tell me the worst things that can happen to a child and how I can help prevent it. And so I always wanted to give them language for their bodies and for consent. And so things like that. I think too with sex, for example, I wanted to be comfortable having uncomfortable conversations with them, or even not be comfortable, but I wanted to force the conversations that could be uncomfortable so that they're not uncomfortable for them.
That's
so
beautiful.
that there's no shame around bodies and all of that. Even if it's hard for me to do it with these little tiny people, those are the types of things I wanted to force because nobody did that with me. Oh, one more. We didn't really talk about money either.
That's a big one.
So I want to do better at that. I just want to start earlier. I want to be as thorough as I can be. Because it's a struggle. Like even if my family had talked about it, I know that I hated accounting and changed my major. And so that could have helped me in a lot of ways had I stuck it out. So I do finance specifically. I want to talk more about that with them at every age.
That's something I don't know anything about talking to children. And I would love to interview someone who knows how to talk to children about finances.
Yes. Budgetnista, here we come.
Yes. I would love it. As of right now, we just let them watch us budget sometimes. But half the time I'm like, I don't know if we know what we're doing. So I don't know if they should watch this.
Well, maybe it gives them
they know we're at least talking
language.
About it. What are some legacies that you would like to hold on to and pass on?
Certain holidays, like so Christmas Eve has always been a big deal in my family. My mom had a Christmas Eve party for like 30 plus years. I say had, she's, COVID messed everything up, but so it's changed a lot. But that's something that I want to continue. And also Thanksgiving dinner with a big family, not just our immediate family, but like finding whatever portion of our family we can go to or can come to us.
Right.
Those two traditions are important to me. And then creating new ones.
Yeah. What about HBCUs?
I would love for them to go to HBCUs, but I know that with Tommy, I can't force that. Tommy's like huge into education. Not to say HBCUs aren't amazing. They absolutely are. But because of the fact that he is a super nerd, for lack of a better description, he's going to want them to, and I want them to know that everything is available to them, but he's more traditional. He went to Carnegie Mellon. Like for him, he's going to want them to pursue the highest possible education. So where there's just certain institutions that are known for that, that aren't HBCUs. So I want them to go to HBCUs. I want them to go wherever they're happy. Like I'm not really that crazy about it, but I want them to go wherever they're happy. And for me, that was an important part of my culture. And so it was a very strategic choice for my life to go to an HBCU. Right.
But academics, college, that's a must for the boys.
It's not a must actually for me.
Oh,
it's not. I think what's a must is like having a plan. Like I don't want them to just, I'm not going to college. People don't do that no more. You know, like I don't want that. But I think that if they are talented at something, or excel at something or have a plan for something that doesn't require college. And I mean like a real plan.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
But the reality is I think that a degree is an important thing to have because it keeps the doors open later.
Right.
But I'm not married to it.
I thought you were going to say doctor, to be quite honest.
Really?
I know that there's like a long line of Dr. Brookses
that either. I would love
lawyers
that.
And
I can't force that either, but I would love for any of my kids to become doctors. I would love that.
I wouldn't.
Why?
I don't know. Their lives don't seem fun to me. I mean, I'd support them if my children wanted to be a doctor. It just looks like a lot. It looks like a lot.
It is. But, folks know how to balance things.
I guess it depends what kind of doctor you are.
Absolutely. My dad had his own practice. My mom and my dad had their own practice. So they were entrepreneurs in addition to lawyer and doctor. And that is super stressful.
But I do think that makes the doctor aspect better. And I say that like, this is totally sidetracked. I apologize. But like a lot of doctors that I know got into it because they wanted to do something and then they couldn't do it because of the politics of where they worked. So that's the part that's really hard. Yeah.
Nope.
All right, friends. Well, make sure I have so many questions that I could ask you.
We could do a part 2
all night. I would love to do a part 2 because there are several questions that I did not get to. I want to talk more about school. Especially school choices and things like that and academics.
Yeah.
Those are things that parents worry about, wonder about. It's for some reason very competitive and so it needs to be talked about. But I would definitely, there are so many things I would love to talk to you about. I thank you so much for being my first guest.
Yay!
And for having grace with me. Y'all, I'm still learning this podcast thing. And I know that a lot of us have loved learning more about you, loved learning more about your parenting journey, want to learn more. And I want to know if there are any exciting things coming up for you.
Well, Black Love Season 6 coming up this summer.
Woo!
And lots of events coming around that. And of course, the rest of the year, like our typical U Retreat, Women's Wellness Retreat, and the Black Love Summit. And when
is the U Retreat? Because I have not made one yet.
August.
I've got
but you RSVP to the last one. What you mean? You know what I'm saying? Told me she was going to be there.
Oh, you know what? That's Mel's fault. We're going to put that on Mel.
I
was on my way. It was the same day. And she showed up at my house and threw me off. And I forgot that it was the same. And then I started seeing stories.
Because we talked after the fact. And she was like, I knew there was something I was supposed to do yesterday.
It was bad.
That's what she said.
It was bad.
Y'all.
I was ready to go. And then Mel showed up and I totally forgot I had anything to do. Because I could have took her with me. We could have been there together. Instead, I was sitting at home checking my stories, looking at people at the U Retreat like, dang it.
Like, oh, that looks fun. Oh,
I was supposed to be there this year, August. It's mapped down. I'm going to write it down somewhere. I'm going to set an alarm for August and not just dinner alarms.
I'm here for it.
All right, friends. Well, make sure you keep up with Codie on Instagram at CodieCo and make sure to keep up with all things Black Love at blacklove.com.
Now we're going to eat beignets.
Oh, yes. Y'all, we're going to go eat beignets. My oldest is making us beignets and she won't let us eat them because she's very particular about her baking. But we're about to go bug her and eat them.
It's time.
Bye, friends. Thank you. Thank you, Codie. Parenting for the Culture is executive produced by Codie and Tommy Oliver. Our senior producer is Crystal Hill. Art is by Coy Madison. Parenting for the Culture is a Black Love Podcast Network production.